Right, welcome ladies and gents. This is probably one of the most insane articles I've ever read. Toxic fandom. How Hollywood is battling fans. Right. I mean, it does go on to say who are just out for blood. But who they define as out for blood is laughable. It's laughable. So this is a piece by Variety. It's well worth taking a look at because the mentality here is off the charts, to be honest. Now remember, as well, you got to remember, Hollywood has been attacking fans for a while. They purposely antagonise fans as well with hate marketing. Like hate campaign marketing is a big thing. Like they love it. They do it all the time. And they do it on purpose. And we know that. It's well documented. So this think piece by Variety was very funny. Very funny. So I thought we'd take a look. Hit subscribe if you're new here. But let's take a look. Right, again, remember, view all of this from the lens that we know exactly what they're doing. And actually, they do know that we know what they're doing. So on August 28th, Amanda Stenberg, the lead of Star Wars, The Acolyte, posted an 8.5-minute video to her Instagram stories about Lucasfilm's abrupt decision not to pick up the show for a second season, just a month after the season 1 finale streamed. It's not a huge shock for me, Stenberg said. Since the series was announced in 2020, we started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language towards us. Which is, I've covered that before as well. It's just a moron. And it says this, in other words, The Acolyte was the latest high-profile target of toxic fandom. Okay, sure. The catch-all term for when fan criticism curdles from good faith dissatisfaction into a relentlessly negative, often bigoted online campaign against either the project or its stars or creative leaders. Now, I like the fact that they use The Acolyte for this because The Acolyte is an example of them attempting to gaslight everyone into believing it was toxic fandom, but that wasn't the case. If you go and look at all of the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, or most of the reviews anywhere actually, they're thoroughly well thought out. They're very well thought out. All of my reviews were very well thought out. There was nothing about anyone to do with anything towards their identity or any of that nonsense. It wasn't anything to do with that. Right? It was, this writing is bad. This is lazy. This is technically bad, etc., etc. And that's what the majority of people thought. But no, we're just toxic fans. So I think that sort of sets the stage for this ridiculous article. Because that is a terrible example. And it says this. Now, I like this, by the way. This is really revealing. In a franchise economy increasingly dependent upon established fandoms, right, audience devotion, to drive the bottom line, the threat of toxic fandoms poisoning that enthusiasm has become a seemingly intractable headache for almost every studio, and it's only getting worse. So, sorry, so you confirm that economically speaking, you are reliant on fandoms, but there's a threat of toxic fandoms risking your bottom line. So essentially what you're saying is we don't want any dissenting voices. We want the fans, we want their money, but we don't want them to dissent. We can't have any dissenting voices. Absurd. Absolutely outrageous. The gaslighting. And it says this, it comes with the territory, but it's gotten incredibly loud in the last couple of years. Because what you do is it has become increasingly more and more egregious. Says a veteran marketing executive at a major studio. People are just out for blood. Because we've had enough. We've reached our limit. And what you often forget, oh marketing Hollywood executive at a major studio, we don't need you. You do actually need us. You actually need the audience. We can stay not watching Hollywood films for a lot longer than you can stay without our money. Like, it's no skin off my nose if I don't go watch a movie. I just don't go and watch a movie. But it is very, very bad for you if we don't go watch a movie. Because you need it. You need to understand the economy. Right? Consumer. Create product for us to enjoy. You haven't been doing that. Idiots. And it says this: they think the purity of the first version will never be replaced, or you've done something to upset the canon of a beloved franchise, and they're going to take you down for doing so. Yes. Rightfully so. Sometimes toxic fandoms behave reactively. A House of the Dragon episode featuring 2 female characters kissing, and an episode of The Last of Us focusing on a gay couple were both review bombed. There may have been, to be fair, I don't know. But there's also the inverse of that, or the opposing side of that, is there's plenty of review bombs which are positively. Right? There is that as well. You forget about this. The practice of mobbing sites like Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb with negative user reviews. Right, so expressing an opinion. Right, okay. Like, it's fully justified to be like, look, I don't want gay shit in everything. Right, that's fully justified. That's fully fine to say that. It's okay. Like, it's not bigoted to say, I'm okay with homosexuality, right? Like, go do your thing, that's fine. Don't want it in everything. That's fine. And if you don't think that's fine, you've been brainwashed. It's perfectly reasonable to say that. And they even say this. Which gained mainstream attention following the premiere of Star Wars The Last of Jedi. Star Wars The Last Jedi. So they're talking about review bombing and pairing it with The Last Jedi. Hilarious. It says this: and an entire YouTube ecosystem is devoted to declaring projects like The Marvels and The Boys woke garbage. The Marvels was woke garbage. It was utterly drivel. It was so bad. You just don't like that people have a voice. Just as frequently, the backlash begins before the project has seen the light of day. Because again, what studios forget is that the pieces of marketing that you release is there to be judged. We can judge it both positively, funnily enough, and negatively. A Reddit mega thread dedicated to outrage over Bridgerton casting a black woman as a love interest for Francesca. Social media epithets directed at the actors of colour as elves and dwarfs in The Rings of Power. Death threats aimed at Leslie Jones during the press tour of 2016's Ghostbusters. All this is just gaslighting. This is pathetic. And it gets better. Perhaps the greatest irony of this phenomenon is the disproportionate impact these toxic fandoms have relative to their actual number. Sorry, what? The vast majority of any fandom are casual fans. That's not true. That's not true at all, says John Van Sitters, VP of Star Trek Brand Development. And how's Star Trek going for you? Why is Variety asking someone to do a Star Trek when that brand is in the fucking toilet? Idiots. Who has been with the storied franchise since the 90s. The number of people who live and die on their franchises are very, very few. And then those who come after things that they espouse their love with venom are a really, really tiny subset of that already smaller subset of fandom. It's just much easier to see it now. I don't know that it's really that much broader than where things were in 1995. It's just that the bullhorn wasn't there. So just wait for this. It says even more here. For some, combating that bullhorn amounts to acting as if they can't hear it. So just burying your head in the sand. Idiots. You want our money, but you don't want to listen to the negativity. Smart. Particularly when it's a negative, toxic conversation. We don't even engage. And what does toxic mean, you pleb? This is from a TV marketing executive. Like with toxic people, you try to not give it too much oxygen. One principal concern is that reacting to these kind of attacks risks alienating fans who are unhappy with creative choices about a franchise, but haven't tipped over into abusive behaviour. So a studio may attempt to amplify friendlier voices instead. We'll reply to comments that are positive and elevate those things. So positive review bombing. Amazing. Still, toxic fandoms have grown so pernicious that they've become a factor of life for many, and so powerful that while talent, executives and publicists will privately bemoan the issue, fear of inadvertently triggering another backlash kept several studios from speaking for this story, even on background. Good. Yeah, good. You should be afraid. You absolutely should be afraid. You need to realise that, again, this is it's a consumer economy. You create a product that we want to consume and we will consume it. If you don't, we won't consume it, but we'll tell you why we haven't consumed it. You need us. We don't need you. We don't need films. It's a beautiful art when they're good, but we don't need films. Those who did talk with the Variety all agreed that the best defence is to avoid provoking fandoms in the first place. In addition to standard focus group testing, studios will assemble a specialised cluster of superfans. to assess possible marketing materials for a major franchise project. Hilarious. They're very vocal. They will just tell us if you do that, fans are going to retaliate. These groups have even led studios to alter the project. If it's early enough and the movie isn't finished yet, we can make those kind of changes. This gets even better. Several studio insiders say they often put their talent through a social media boot camp. In some cases, when a character is intentionally challenging a franchise's status quo, studios will, with the actor's permission, take over their social media accounts entirely. So you know full well what you're doing. When things got really bad, especially involving threats of violence, security firms will scrub talent information from the internet to protect them from doxing, which is that's perfectly reasonable. That's a good thing to do. And this just goes on and on and on about some examples, but their examples are hilarious. And then there's this. There isn't one way to handle toxic fans on the internet. Stay off it. I'm not online, so I'm protected. Says the most wholesome Marvel star ever, Elizabeth Olsen, who doesn't get any hate, but okay. Anyway, there you go. I thought this was hilarious. So basically, just being gaslit and Hollywood has declared war on fans. Good times.